Welcome to the Empowerment Hour podcast, your digital classroom where individuals across all ages, backgrounds, and career levels tune in to get their weekly dose of inspiration and motivation. It's where passion and purpose intersect. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah and your very own personal success coach. My goal is to help you discover your purpose and take inspired action so that you create a life where you feel fulfilled and empowered. So if you're ready to start living on purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. You are tuned in to the Empowerment Hour podcast, and I am your host, Nancy Ruffin. Welcome back, my loves, to another week of the podcast. I took a little break last week just because I wanted to give myself some time to enjoy a weekend in the summer without having any additional pressures. I've actually been super busy with my day job, believe it or not. That last week, I really just wanted to take a break from everything. And so that included the podcast. I hope you all are also taking the necessary breaks, in your own lives when you feel overworked and overwhelmed. And just when you just feel like you need that time off. I know that we have conditioned ourselves to hustle, grind, work. But I will tell you from personal experience that you cannot overdo it, because what you're going to do is you're going to burn yourself out. And when you burn yourself out, for some people, that means that you burn yourself out to the point of physical exhaustion, physical illness, and you don't want it to get to the point where you're really so out of it that it starts to affect your health, and then God is stepping in and you end up in the hospital or you end up really sick and it's no good. So I want to stress to you guys that yes, we absolutely must work, towards our dreams and towards those things that we say that we want. But you also have to be able to recognize when enough is enough and allow yourself and your mind and your body to just relax, And so for me, last weekend was that. I took the time for myself. And, for those of you who may follow me on social media, then you also know that my grandmother recently has a health issue. She is an elderly woman, 92 years old, very fragile, and she fell. And as a result of her fall, she ended up with a broken hip and a broken pelvis. And so she had been in the hospital for almost a week. And she actually got discharged last Saturday. But in the time that she was in the hospital, unfortunately, she was not receiving the level of care that, in my opinion, she should have been receiving. And so a great majority of my time, last week was spent advocating for her. And that is very stressful, and so it really started to take a toll on me. But, I did what I had to do, and I made sure that she got the care that she should have been receiving. And, I use her story as an example, because I work in healthcare and I actually work for the organization that oversees the New York City public hospitals, and the hospital that she was in is one of our hospitals. And so as an employee, of course, I know exactly who I need to reach out to in the hospital to make sure that my voice is heard and to make sure that the things that were happening while my grandmother was in the hospital didn't happen, anymore to her or to future patients. I had to make my voice heard, very professionally, of course, but loudly nonetheless. And so I share this with you all because it is our responsibility as patients when we're patients ourselves, or when our family members are patients, to advocate for ourselves or for our loved ones when we feel that we are not getting the treatment or the care that we deserve. And I know that sometimes it can become stressful. It can appear as an extra burden or just something that we may not want to deal with. But guys, I implore you to make your voices heard, because they listen. At the very highest levels, they listen. And if you being a voice for yourself or for your family member can change the potential future outcomes for someone else, you very well may be saving someone's life. Because when you're in a hospital, the slightest error or the slightest oversight can result in the death of someone. And so even though I struggled a bit with deciding whether or not I wanted to make a complaint advocate, I think, in the long run for me, the decision was easy, because I said, if I don't advocate for my grandmother, then what's happening to her can happen to someone else. And if I can prevent this from happening to somebody else and saving someone's life, then I have done my job. And so that was what I did. But all of that just had me so stressed. That between then the back and forth between my family members, and it was just all so much. So by the time the weekend came, I really did not want to do anything. All I wanted to do was enjoy the weekend with my family and just really lay low and not have to think or focus on work. But it is a new week. I am here, and and I'm happy to be back, because although I needed the break, the one weekend was enough. I felt like I had to be back. The summer is almost gone, you guys. We're already in the second week of August. My daughter just finished summer camp. So that means 3 more weeks and they're back in school, and soon we'll be in fall. Soon winter will be here, Christmas, and the year will be over. But I really wanted to kind of just touch base with you guys this week and kind of just reconnect and let you all know what I've been up to. This past week, actually, I attended a lecture given by Marianne Williamson. And for those of you who may not know her, she is an author. I believe that recently she also ran for public office, but she really is a teacher of A Course in Miracles. And what that is, it's a book designed really to teach us or re-educate us on tapping into love versus fear. And it's very spiritual. It's very God-based. And so she has these lectures twice a month in New York City. And a month ago, a friend and I went out to dinner. And at that time, we said, wow, we really should go check her out when she's back in New York City. And so my friend Kiana and I and her mom attended Marianne's lecture this week. And I will tell you that the more I connect with my spiritual side, or the more that I try to reestablish my relationship with God, the more God, quote unquote, the universe, presents all of these different connections, opportunities, and in this instance, lectures that help to refill, so to speak, my spiritual cup. And one of the things that she spoke about in her lecture was the concept of love versus fear, right? And really what she was saying, or what the Course in Miracles says, is that there really are only 2 real emotions in the world. And one is love, and the other one is fear. And so when we fear something is because we lack, for whatever reason, the ability to love at that moment. And so I shared something on my Instagram this week about fear, and how fear for many of us is the one thing that stops us dead in our tracks from pursuing our dreams, our passions, our goals, or, those things that we love. And then, my friend who attended with me, she responded and she was like, remember, love creates, fear destroys. And it really helped to put things in perspective for me. And so this week I wanted to talk about love, about fear, but in a broader sense, I really wanted to talk about emotions and our feelings, and how our feelings are really what is the word I'm looking for? Our feelings are indicators, right, of the places or the areas that we still need to be healed, right? So if we're triggered in certain areas and we experience certain emotions, then that means that we still have some healing to do in that area. And I'm going to go into that, a little bit later in the podcast, because I also wanted to share with you guys, that this past weekend, one of my friends was visiting from Florida, and it was just really great reconnecting with an old friend, with people who have known you, right, before you are the you that you are today, right? Because who we are today is a culmination of all of the experiences that we've had, right, from birth through childhood, through adolescence, to adulthood. So when you're able to be around, people that you grew up with as a child, and you're able to spend time with them as an adult, these are individuals who knew you before the new you, right? And so it was really great just spending time with her and her husband. And, one of the things that I realized, or I recognized as a result of just being, around them, is just the amazing energy that was flowing amongst all of us, and the conversations that we were having. Like, we literally, we're laughing and we were joking and just reminiscing on the old times. But then the conversation also shifted, into God and spirituality. And it was just a very dynamic, few hours spent where we talked about everything and anything. And the energy was just really, really great. And it really forced me to think about other relationships that I've had in my life. And I have to say that at this moment in time, I'm just so fortunate that I am surrounded by like-minded individuals, by people who are kind of growing or going in the same direction as I am. And so the relationship just flows. And what I mean by that is that there's no drama, there's no negativity, there's no feeling of inadequacy, of questioning, the status of the friendship, of the relationship. And so for you guys, really what I wanted to pose out there for you is to really do a pulse check of your own circle, of your own friends, and how you're spending your time when you're with these individuals, right? I want you to kind of step back, in a sense, when you're with them, like step out of yourself and observe how you feel when you're around certain people. Observe what the conversations are like. Like, what are you talking about? Are you a better person when you're around certain people? Do they force you to level up? Do they force you to become a better version, or want to become a better version of yourself? Or are you engaging in meaningless conversation? Are you gossiping? Do you feel like your spirit is being attacked? Do you feel closed in? Or are you open, right? And are you feeling giving? And is love in the room? At the end of the day, we want the people that we surround ourselves with to be mirrors of who we are, right? Because they should be able to reflect back to ourselves who we are and what we want, out of our lives. And so if your reflection or if what you see come back at you makes you feel uneasy, makes you feel uncomfortable, leaves you feeling depleted or unhappy or miserable, then you have to make some changes in your life and in your circle and in the environment that you're placing yourself in. Because one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older and as I have different experiences is that life is really short. And I don't want to spend one moment, 1 second being unhappy, feeling miserable, feeling sad. I mean, of course, there are times and moments when those things are going to happen, right? That you have no control over. It might be the loss of a loved one, or, you have just a really bad day. But in the areas where you can control that and you can control those feelings, you absolutely don't want to place yourself in environments or situations where you're feeling not good, right? And so do an assessment, do an inventory of your friends, of the circle that you're around, and see if it's contributing to your growth or if it's holding you back. And again, this kind of all ties with today's topic of in my feelings, right? Recognizing our emotional triggers. And I wanted to talk about this because my girl, Stephanie, the life architect, BLC, New York, I don't know if it was this past week or last week, but she had an Instagram live where her and another young woman, I think she's a therapist as well. I don't remember her name, but she was on with someone else and they were talking about recognizing emotional triggers. Now, I missed the live. I don't remember why, but I think I might have been putting my kids to sleep. I think it was around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. that it happened, and I wasn't able to catch it. But this is a topic that has been, very popular and has been just something that people have been talking about, particularly as it relates to mental health, right? And understanding the things that kind of set us off and get us off balance. And this is something that I have been actively working towards because I am a very emotional person. And so I react immediately off of emotion. And sometimes, when you do that, you don't make the best decisions because you let your emotion cloud your better judgment. But recognizing that that's an issue or recognizing that you have that problem is the first step, to working through that and to changing the things that you allow to trigger you. And I remember when I was younger, I was really hot-headed. I was even more emotional than I am now because back then I didn't even realize that it was a thing. So anything used to just make me go off, and I would pop off at anything, at anybody for any reason. And then oftentimes I would end up regretting, my reaction, because once you calm down and you allow yourself the opportunity to really think things through, then you're able to recognize handling the situation in a different, more productive way. And, even now, as self-aware as I am, I understand that to some level I'm still a petty Patty. And it's not something that I'm proud of. And there are people out there who, are proud to be petty, and they'll call themselves the queen of petty, but I am not. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes I would allow other people's behaviors to influence how I responded. And I'm starting to realize that not everything requires a response. And sometimes no response is the loudest response one can give, right? And so think about those things that trigger you. And why do they trigger you? And earlier in the podcast, I said that those areas where you're triggered easily means that there's some healing that has to be done. And just to kind of put this in perspective, I'm going to give you a little example. So think back to a time where you might have been in a relationship, right? It could have been your greatest love, and you break up, or they cheat on you, right? You find that they cheat on you, or they do something that just really, really devastates you, and you're really hurt, right? It takes time for you to be able to be in the same room with this person again. It takes time for you to be able to talk to them without you feeling the love or the anger or the pain or the heartbreak that they caused you, because there was an emotional attachment there, right? And so if you're around this person before you've had the opportunity to completely heal from the love and the pain that they caused you, it's going to stir up, it's going to trigger something in you, right? And it might be a negative reaction that it triggers because you haven't healed the part of you that was broken as a result of that relationship. And so when I'm talking about emotional triggers, when you find yourself in a situation and you see yourself responding in a way that is not reflective of your highest self-actualized self, then that means that there's still work that has to be done. There's still a part of you that hasn't been completely healed. And I'm applying this to myself as it relates to certain relationships that I've had in my life. And I remember probably, I don't know if it has to be over 10 years, because my oldest daughter is 6, and that relationship had ended way before I even conceived Avery. But, one of my really, really close friendships ended. And for a time, whenever her name was brought up, or whenever people asked about her, my reaction was very defensive. It was very angry, and I would badmouth her. But now I realize that all of that came from a place of hurt and from the fact that I had not healed from the breakup of that relationship. So the same way we have to mourn and heal breakups from romantic relationships, we also have to do the same from friendships. And so now I know that I'm healed from that relationship, because now I can talk about her and I can reflect on that relationship, and I feel nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, I feel I'm grateful, for the relationship at that time, for what it taught me, for the lessons that I learned, through the friendship, but I feel nothing now. So I know that I'm healed from that. And so I'm not emotionally triggered by that. Where in hindsight, there's still other relationships that I've had with other people that still trigger certain kinds of emotions from me. And I'm learning to work through that, because I want to get to the point where it doesn't affect me anymore, where I can truly say, I've let it go and I don't care, and I wish nothing but the best from them. Like, I'm trying to get to that place of love, right? Where I can just really exhibit love towards every single person that has ever been a part of my life, because at some point they taught me something, and at some point they contributed to my growth. They contributed to the person that I am today. So identify what those triggers are in your life. What are the certain emotions that, you kind of step into when you're faced with certain situations or when you're confronted by certain people? And then do some introspective work and ask yourself, why is this person, why is this situation, why is this experience triggering up this emotion for me? And start to try to break that down, because when you do, that is when the healing starts. And then when you recognize that emotion is trying to come out of you, right, you can control it better, because now you understand what's causing it. And when you understand what's causing it, then you can combat that. And so that's really all I wanted to share with you guys this week. I just want to remind you that in a couple of weeks or so, I have some really exciting news to share with you guys, because I'm planning a host of events for the fall, with the first one being an event centered on sisterhood and colorism, right? So it's that conversation or that division that happens amongst women of color. Traditionally, it has been African American women and Latinas, so it's black and brown, and why there has been historically a division amongst us, when in reality we should be united, because there are so many more things that unite us than divide us. So it's an event that I have partnered with Stephanie, the Life Architect, and Cynthia Branch, who is a psychotherapist. And we are going to bring our Black and Brown sisters together. We are going to have a really candid discussion on stereotypes, on why we believe the things that we believe about one another, and what we can do to break down the barriers that have kept us divided, and figure out solutions to unite us. So I would encourage you to join my mailing list, because this week we will be sending out the link to purchase tickets to this exclusive event exclusively to our mailing list first. So those of you who are on our mailing list will get the link to purchase the ticket. But not only that, you will also get the opportunity to purchase the ticket at a 20% discount. So if you have not subscribed to my mailing list, head on over to my website, www.iamnancyruffin.com, and sign up so that you can get the newsletter, so you can get the link to purchase the ticket, and you can get the code to get the ticket at a discount. So that's it for this week, mi gente. Until next time, love yourselves, love each other, and go out there and crush those goals.